Let's check in with Luke Johnson somewhere in this great nation, coming back from South California to South Louisiana. Luke, how we doing?
I'm good, man. This is like perfect timing. I like just got off a plane in Denver and I'm boarding my next one in like 15 minutes. This is magic.
Wonderful. That's the beauty of radio. Let's get it done quickly so you can get back on a jet plane and get on home. Lot of action since we last spoke. Let's start with the preseason game, and I certainly want to talk about the practice that y'all saw with the Rams because that wasn't available to us like the preseason game was. But preseason game, quarterbacks, what'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, like I think there was just good and bad, right? It's kind of what we've seen throughout camp. Although I do think that Tyler Shough is definitely making strides. He's a lot better player now than he was when they opened camp, which like obviously makes sense, right? He's a rookie quarterback coming in, learning a new offense, playing with new players. It was going to take some time. So, like I think he's been making a lot of strides in the right direction. I still think like if training camp ends tomorrow, which obviously it doesn't. I still think it'd be Spencer Rattler's job, but I think he's gained a lot of ground. Yeah, I thought obviously there's the big negative plays from both quarterbacks in that preseason game, the pick six from Tyler Shough and the strip sack from Spencer Rattler. But they showed they could do some things, and they were doing it without the full complement of players. No Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed, no Eric McCoy. Those are three. No Alvin Kamara. I mean, that's four of your most important players on offense. So saw what you needed to see, didn't see what you really wanted to see, which is one of them looking like, great. But, for Shough especially, his first NFL drive is a 2-minute drive. He goes and puts points on the board, and then he has a big touchdown pass immediately after that pick six. He went 4 for 4 for 80 yards and a touchdown on that drive. Like, I think there's something there that you can work with.
No doubt. Let's talk on the negative side with the injuries that we saw over the last week. Clapp, IR, Bub Means out for the year, and then Trevor Penning. You're going to have to update me on that. But what do those three mean?
Well, Will Clapp wasn't really having a particularly good camp. He's had a lot of snapping issues. I don't necessarily know if he was guaranteed a roster spot. So obviously it hurts to lose veteran depth on your team. But I'm not sure he was guaranteed to be on the team. And same thing with Bub Means. It's somebody who I was really hoping to see a lot more of in training camp, and he just hasn't really kind of consistently flashed in those practices. And they really need a receiver of his size. So you had two guys there who I just don't know if that's going to end up having really any legitimate long-term impact on the team. Even though you would like to have a capable veteran backup in case Eric McCoy goes out. The Trevor Penning one is, I think potentially like a big deal. I think he's played really well at guard in camp, but he still needs some more seasoning there. And for him to lose, we don't have an exact timeline on this, but let's say it's 6 weeks, right? So he's going to miss all of the preseason, and you're talking about a 1 or 2 games of the regular season. Not only is there going to be a drop off in play there, but that's like him losing valuable snaps to get ready for this regular season, because he's kind of the linchpin for this offensive line. Everybody else you have reasonable expectations for, and him, it could be really good and it could not be good. He just needed the reps. So, that's going to hurt. And I think one more to watch out for is Alontae Taylor dealing with a groin injury. We don't have a firm timeline on him either. And those things can linger. So, we're keeping an eye out on Ugo Amadi and Terrell Burgess, who are kind of splitting those slot corner star reps that Taylor was taking. But, he's going to be a big-time player in this defense. So, that's really something we got to keep a close eye on.
When you look at the Penning injury and then you pair it with the fact that Clapp is hurt and you pair it with the fact that Saldiveri is hurt and they're done, what does that mean at left guard? Is it a Shane Lemieux? I mean, what are they going to do there?
No, I think it's Dylan Radins.
Yeah.
Who's somebody they signed this offseason. Yeah, when they signed him, they hadn't drafted Kelvin Banks yet. So, when they made that signing, everybody's like, okay, that's a potential starting guard option. He's somebody who's started at guard in the NFL as soon as last year. So, but it chips away at your depth. I mean, you're talking about 3 guys in Clapp and Saldiveri and Penning who were starting or going into the season expected to be top backups. So, I mean, look, offensive line depth is a concern for like 31 NFL teams. And Saints are no different, but like it's like the level of concern. Like, do you feel like I feel okay about it, or do you feel like we need to get guys in here? And based on what we've seen in camp, like I think the Saints should be really worried about their number 2 offensive line. It could be a spot that they're keeping an eye out on these other teams playing their preseason games and seeing who may or may not make a roster, and maybe we see them make some additional moves after cutdown day.
You were at the practice with the Rams. I know what I've read, but I don't want to lead you in any way. So what'd you think of the practice with the Rams?
Yeah, so they split up into 2 fields. So my colleague Matt Paris and I split up, and I was watching the Saints defense. And look, they were going up against Jimmy Garoppolo and Stetson Bennett, who I don't think anybody's going to confuse for Matthew Stafford anytime soon. But like, I think they look pretty good, man. Like, and that's just kind of been a consistent theme throughout camp. And you wanted to see that against a team like the Rams that has, even without Stafford, has some star power on its offensive roster. Kyron Williams, Devontae Adams, and Puka Nacua. Tutu Atwell had a nice season for him. They got some nice offensive linemen. So, like Chase Young dominated. He had like 5 pressures, 2 sacks, and 3 pass breakups. Julian Blackmon had an interception in his 3rd straight day of training camp practice. I think he's up to 5 for training camp. Like, he looks like a dude. And he's a guy who played really well for Indianapolis, and he dealt with injuries, and he's been, kind of signing these 1-year deals. But I think putting him into this Brandon Staley scheme is going to be really good for him. So, I think I feel pretty good about their defense just being a feisty group. Like, I don't think I'm willing to say they're going to be like a top 10 defense, but like, I think they could sneak into the top half of the league in, some important stats. Because we've seen guys who, have kind of underperformed to this point in their career, or are kind of written off, look really good in this scheme. I think Staley's just a smart coach, and he knows how to get the most out of these guys.
As far as the other side of the field where Matthew was, that's the part that I read some about.
Yeah, well, Rams have a really good front.
Yes,
and they were giving the Saints problems, and it's not the first. That's not the first time we've heard that about the Rams, even in a joint practice this year. So I think that group's going to cause a lot of problems for everybody. But like, I do think that for as much investment as the Saints have put into this offensive line this offseason, even with like just one of their starters missing, like all of those guys are, maybe with the exception of McCoy, are known more for their ability as run blockers and pass blockers. And especially when you've got 2 young tackles kind of bookending things, they're going to go through some growing pains. Even Tali Fuaga, who had a nice rookie season, like was not a great, like an elite pass blocker last year. He's much better as a run blocker. I think they're going to go through similar stuff with Kelvin Banks, and it's going to be, some hit and miss days from those guys especially against really, really good fronts. Which is not exactly what you want to hear when you're trotting out a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback. Especially guys who have some limitations. Like that said, though, like I don't think they're going to be a disaster this year. Like we've seen good bits out of them, but like I just think that we can't just have this expectation they're just gonna plug those young guys in and it's gonna go swimmingly, especially when they go up against a D-line that has Jared Verse and Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner and Byron Young. Like they racked up a lot of sacks with that front 4, especially last year. So it's just got to be something people are prepared for when they're watching this team, and not just like go out there in week 1 and Kelvin Banks gives up 2 sacks and they say, well, they wasted a pick. And, they're just going to have growing pains with those guys.
Before we let you go, any thoughts on the quarterback rotation, what you expect to see on Sunday in the Dome?
We haven't gotten any word from Kellen Moore, who's just like, just frankly just refusing to give us any sort of fun information to work with.
Yep.
But I would expect it to be Tyler Shough. I would think they'd give each guy one turn through the rotation as a starter in the preseason, which is kind of how they've been doing it throughout training camp. And then, maybe it would be next week where they're like, we're gonna name a starter, and we're gonna roll with it. We got to get ready. I just don't know. I don't have a feel for how Kellen Moore treats the start of the regular season. Has Sean Payton, it was Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston. I think Sean Payton named the starter after week 2. But I don't know if it's going to be the same thing with Kellen Moore. But I still expect it to be Shough with the ones on Sunday against the Jaguars.
We shall see. Fly safe. Enjoy this football on Sunday, and we'll talk next week.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.
Luke Johnson with The Advocate at @ByLukeJohnson on Twitter, where you can find him. A lot of good work for the Saints in Southern California. Got some practice in before the Chargers game. Got a joint practice in with a really talented team in the Rams. Now they come back and get ready for Jacksonville, and we'll be watching. I would tend to agree with that assessment that you'll see Shough with the first team. If you don't see Shough with the first team, I think that's a huge message that Kellen Moore will be sending. That Spencer Rattler's his guy, but I think that he wants to probably evaluate both of them in those circumstances. So I'll give you my thoughts on Saints-Jags in the second hour, but that's appreciate Luke for making some time with us. Like, he had a quick connection there in Denver, and we were able to squeeze in 12 minutes with him there, so we appreciate Luke for making a little bit of time for us today. Hey, it's on. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.